Security guard kicks Ryan Reynolds out. His next move stuns the crowd. The security guard barely looked up from his clipboard as he crossed his arms. "I'm sorry, sir. This event is invite only." The man standing before him, wearing a simple hoodie and sneakers, raised an eyebrow. "You serious?" The crowd outside the luxury venue murmured in curiosity. They recognized the man instantly. Ryan Reynolds, A-list actor, Hollywood's golden boy, and yet here he was, being denied entry like some random stranger. The guard remained firm, tapping the clipboard. "Your name's not on the list." Ryan chuckled, shaking his head. "Wow, this is a first." He wasn't angry, just amused. But as the moment stretched, the whispers grew louder. Cameras were already rolling. Someone in the crowd muttered, "Wait, are they actually kicking out Ryan Reynolds?" The security guard didn't waver. "I don't make the rules, sir." Ryan sighed, then did something no one expected. He stepped back, flashed his signature grin, and turned toward the crowd. The murmurs in the crowd turned into full-blown chatter. People pulled out their phones, recording every second. A-list celebrities getting kicked out of exclusive events. That was newsworthy. Ryan, still grinning, turned to a teenage fan nearby. "Well, guess I'm not getting in. Mind if I hang with you guys instead?" The teen's jaw dropped. Wait, what?" Before anyone could react, Ryan casually leaned against the barricade, chatting with fans like it was the most natural thing in the world. He signed posters, took selfies, and cracked jokes as if he had planned this all along. Meanwhile, inside the venue, executives and high-profile guests were starting to notice the scene unfolding outside. The PR team rushed to the entrance, whispering furiously into their headsets. The security guard glanced back toward the doors, clearly uncomfortable now. This wasn't just some random incident anymore. This was becoming a moment. And then, just when it seemed like the situation couldn't escalate any further, Ryan took things up another notch. He pulled out his phone, opened Twitter, and tweeted something that made the entire internet lose its mind. Ryan's fingers moved swiftly over his phone screen, his trademark wit kicking in. Within seconds, he hit send. "Kicked out of my own movie premiere. Guess I'll start a new career as a professional line waiter. Who's hiring?" The tweet hit like a bomb. Within minutes, it was blowing up. Thousands of likes, retweets, comments flooding in. No way they just did this to Ryan Reynolds. Imagine kicking out the main character. Security really said, "Not on the list," to a dude whose name is on the poster. Outside the venue, people started chanting his name. "Let Ryan in! Let Ryan in!" Meanwhile, inside, the event organizers were panicking. A producer bolted toward the security team, frustration written all over his face. "Do you realize what's happening right now? We're getting roasted online. Let him in." The guard hesitated. He wasn't about to break protocol just because of some online backlash. Ryan, still grinning, glanced at his phone as the notifications flooded in. Then he did something that made the crowd go even crazier. He climbed onto the barricade, looked at the fans, and shouted, "Should I even go in?" The response was deafening. The crowd erupted into cheers, their voices echoing through the street. Cameras flashed as Ryan stood there, hands in his pockets, a playful smirk on his face. Inside the venue, executives scrambled, whispering into earpieces, their faces filled with panic. This wasn't just an awkward moment anymore. It was turning into a public relations nightmare. The security guard shifted uncomfortably. His orders had been clear: no name on the list, no entry. But things were getting out of hand fast. Ryan wasn't just standing there anymore. He was winning over the entire crowd. A reporter from a major news outlet, who had been inside covering the event, rushed outside with her cameraman. She pointed the microphone at Ryan. "Mr. Reynolds, it looks like you've been denied entry to your own event. How do you feel about this?" Ryan looked at her, then at the crowd, then back at the security guard. "Honestly?" He paused, scratching his chin dramatically. "I think I might be having more fun out here than I would in there." The crowd cheered, fans shouting his name. The moment was no longer just about an A-list celebrity being turned away. It was about how effortlessly he was turning the situation in his favor. People inside the event were glued to their phones, watching the scene unfold on Twitter, Instagram, even live streams. Some guests whispered among themselves, laughing at the absurdity of it all. How did a Hollywood premiere end up with its biggest star standing outside, making the entire industry look ridiculous? But then something changed. A black SUV pulled up to the curb. The back door opened and out stepped one of the biggest Hollywood executives in the industry. He adjusted his tie, glanced at the chaos in front of him, and started walking toward Ryan with a look that meant business. The cameras zoomed in. The energy in the air shifted. This wasn't just fun and games anymore. Something was about to go down. The murmurs in the crowd grew louder as the Hollywood executive approached. The man was well known in the industry, one of the power players behind some of the biggest blockbuster films. His presence alone sent a message. This was no longer a minor incident. Ryan turned as the executive reached him. He tilted his head slightly, still grinning, but now with curiosity. The executive didn't waste time. "Ryan, can we talk?" His voice was calm, controlled, but there was tension beneath it. Ryan crossed his arms. "Sure, but do I need an invitation for this conversation? Or am I good?" The crowd laughed. The security guard looked like he wanted to disappear. The executive sighed, glancing at the cameras around them. He lowered his voice. "Look, this was a mistake, a mix-up. We need to get you inside." Ryan didn't move. His eyes flicked toward the fans still lined up behind the barricades, watching like an audience at a live event. He wasn't just going to walk in like nothing had happened. That wasn't how this played out. "Here's the thing," Ryan said, his voice carrying easily over the noise. "You guys didn't seem too concerned when I was just another guy standing on the sidewalk. But now that the internet is roasting you alive, suddenly it's a mistake?" The executive clenched his jaw. "Ryan, we both know how this works. Let's fix this before it gets worse." Ryan pretended to think for a moment, tapping his chin. Then, without warning, he turned back to the crowd. "What do you think, guys? Should I go in?" The crowd exploded. Some yelled yes, some yelled no. The energy was electric, unpredictable. The executive took a deep breath, clearly realizing Ryan had complete control of the moment. The actor could make the situation end however he wanted. Ryan let the noise settle before speaking again. "All right, I'll go in, but only on one condition." The executive folded his arms. "Which is?" Ryan turned, pointing at the fans behind him. "I bring some of them with me." A stunned silence fell over the street. The executive blinked, caught completely off guard. The security guard looked like he might faint. And just like that, the entire situation shifted again. The silence that followed Ryan's words was almost surreal. The executive blinked, processing what had just happened. The security guard glanced between them, unsure of what to do. The fans, on the other hand, were losing their minds. A voice from the crowd broke through the tension. "Wait, is this actually happening?" Ryan turned back, arms crossed, a smirk still resting on his face. "Yeah, why not? They showed up for this event just like I did. Only difference is I'm on the poster and they're out here stuck behind a barricade." The executive's jaw tightened. He leaned in, lowering his voice so only Ryan could hear. "This is a high-profile event, Ryan. We can't just let in random people off the street." Ryan didn't budge. "You let influencers in." His voice was calm but firm. "You let executives' friends and their plus ones in. And if I walked in alone right now, that wouldn't be a problem. But the second I say these fans deserve the same, now suddenly it's complicated?" The crowd erupted in agreement. Some clapped, others chanted his name. The event was no longer about the movie. It was about Ryan Reynolds challenging the very system that had just shut him out. The executive rubbed his temple, exhaling sharply. He could see the headlines forming already. "Ryan Reynolds takes fans to premiere after being kicked out." And the worst part? He knew it would make his company look like the bad guys. Ryan shrugged. "If it's too much, no problem. I'll stay out here and host my own premiere." He gestured to the fans. "We've got cameras, we've got an audience. We're good." The executive's nostrils flared. Ryan wasn't just bluffing. He was daring him to say no. The street was now completely packed, cameras from media outlets flashing. Inside, actors and executives were glued to their phones, watching it unfold on social media. It was clear the internet had already taken Ryan's side. The executive sighed, realizing there was no winning this fight. He waved a hand at the security guard. "Fine, let them in, but only a few." Ryan grinned. That's all I needed to hear. He turned to the fans and pointed randomly. You, and you. Let's go. The fans nearly collapsed from shock, scrambling past the barricade as security hesitated before letting them through. As Ryan led them inside, the entire internet exploded. The moment Ryan and his chosen fans stepped past the velvet rope, the energy shifted. The cameras outside flashed wildly, capturing what was now more than just a Hollywood event. It was a statement. Inside, the atmosphere was completely different. Dim, elegant lighting, expensive decor, and neatly dressed celebrities sipping champagne. The event had been carefully curated to feel exclusive. But now, it felt like something real was about to happen. Ryan strolled in casually, acting like nothing was unusual. But the stunned silence in the room said otherwise. The executives whispered among themselves, their carefully planned PR event now hijacked by the very man they had kicked out. The fans who had followed Ryan inside looked around, overwhelmed. One of them, a young woman wearing a Deadpool t-shirt, whispered, "This is insane." Ryan smirked. "Yeah, let's make it more insane." With that, he walked straight onto the red carpet, ignoring the press lineup. The journalists, confused at first, quickly adjusted. Their cameras focused on him, their questions shifting from the movie to the moment. "Ryan, what happened outside? Did they really try to keep you out of your own premiere? How do you feel about the studio letting fans in with you?" Ryan leaned toward one of the microphones, completely unfazed. "Honestly," he turned back and gestured toward the fans behind him, "I think these guys deserve to be here just as much as anyone else." The press exploded. The reporters who had been prepared to ask boring, pre-scripted questions about the film were now in the middle of a cultural moment. Meanwhile, up on the balcony, a group of studio executives watched with clenched jaws. They had spent millions marketing this event, but in less than an hour, Ryan had completely rewritten the narrative. Back on the red carpet, another journalist asked, "Ryan, why did they refuse you entry in the first place?" Ryan raised an eyebrow, pretending to think. "Maybe I didn't RSVP, or maybe I just looked too suspicious in my hoodie." He shrugged. "Honestly, I think they just forgot that a movie doesn't happen without the fans." The fans behind him went wild. At that moment, it didn't matter how much money had been spent on advertising. It didn't matter how exclusive the guest list had been. Ryan had turned the premiere into something bigger than just another Hollywood event. And the internet, it was eating it up. As Ryan stood on the red carpet, flashing his usual grin, the buzz inside the venue shifted from polite conversations to full-blown chaos. His words weren't just a passing comment. They were a direct challenge to Hollywood's exclusivity. The journalists knew it, the executives upstairs knew it, and most importantly, the internet knew it. Twitter was already on fire. Ryan Reynolds just brought fans into his premiere after getting kicked out. This man is a legend. Hollywood really tried to deny Deadpool himself? The disrespect. The security guard who kicked him out is probably updating his resume right now. Inside the venue, celebrities exchanged glances, some chuckling, others shaking their heads. They all knew Ryan. This wasn't a PR stunt. This was just him, unfiltered, real, untouchable. One of the event's hosts, a well-dressed interviewer with a perfect smile, cautiously stepped up. She cleared her throat, adjusting her earpiece as a producer whispered instructions. "Ryan," she said smoothly, "this has been quite an entrance. What do you want people to take away from tonight?" Ryan looked at her, then at the fans standing beside him. He exhaled through his nose, then, just as everyone expected a sarcastic remark, his expression softened. "Listen," he said, lowering his voice just enough that the room fell silent. "I love making movies. I love that people show up to watch them. But I think sometimes this industry forgets that the reason we're all standing here, the reason any of this matters," he gestured to the fans behind him, "is because of them." A beat of silence, then applause. It started small, but it grew quickly, spreading through the crowd. Some actors nodded, others clapped. Even the journalists, usually neutral, couldn't help but acknowledge the moment. The studio executives watching from above, they weren't clapping. They were furiously messaging their PR teams, trying to spin this in their favor. Ryan smiled at the fans beside him. So yeah, he continued, I guess my takeaway is, next time, maybe don't kick me out of my own premiere. The entire venue burst into laughter, and just like that, Ryan Reynolds had done what only Ryan Reynolds could do: turn a corporate disaster into a viral, unforgettable event. The fans who had come in with him, they weren't just guests anymore. They were part of Hollywood history. The security guard who kicked him out, nowhere to be seen. And the internet, absolutely losing its mind. As the laughter echoed through the venue, Ryan gave the fans beside him a playful nudge. All right, let's get to the actual movie before they try to kick us out again. The crowd cheered as he led them toward the entrance of the theater, the cameras still rolling. The moment had already been immortalized online. Meanwhile, inside a dimly lit back room of the venue, a group of studio executives huddled around a laptop, watching the social media storm unfold in real time. The damage was done. They had planned a standard premiere filled with scripted interviews and predictable PR-friendly moments. Instead, they got the most talked about Hollywood event of the year. On the screen, headlines were already making waves. Ryan Reynolds hijacks his own premiere, and fans love him for it. A-list actor turns PR nightmare into a masterclass in authenticity. Security guard kicks out Ryan Reynolds. His response? Legendary. One executive slammed his fist onto the table. How did we let this happen? Another one, younger and clearly more in tune with the digital world, just shook his head, smirking. Are you kidding? This is the best thing that could have happened. Look at the engagement. This is bigger than any marketing campaign we could have pulled off. Back in the main theater, Ryan and the fans took their seats, still buzzing from the chaos. The lights dimmed. The movie was about to begin. Ryan leaned over to one of the fans beside him. Hey, if this movie sucks, just pretend to laugh at my jokes, all right? The fan grinned. I was going to do that anyway. And just like that, Ryan Reynolds had once again turned an ordinary night into a viral legend. The studio may have fumbled, the security may have misstepped, but in the end, it didn't matter, because the internet had already decided who the real winner was. Ryan Reynolds wasn't just a Hollywood star tonight. He was Hollywood's biggest power shift, and he didn't need a VIP list to prove it. As the credits rolled, the energy in the theater was still electric. What had started as a simple movie premiere had turned into something much bigger. People weren't just talking about the film, they were talking about the moment. A Hollywood star had shown the world that authenticity beats exclusivity, that no amount of velvet ropes or security lists can replace real human connection, that sometimes the best moments aren't the ones planned by studios, but the ones that happen when someone decides to break the rules for the right reasons. Ryan didn't just walk into a premiere that night, he walked into internet history. And the lesson? Power doesn't come from being let in. It comes from knowing you don't need permission in the first place. As people left the theater, checking their phones, watching the trending headlines, one thing was clear. Hollywood hadn't just premiered a movie tonight. It had premiered a reminder of why the best stories don't just happen on screen. And as Ryan Reynolds casually walked out of the venue, giving high fives to fans, he didn't have to say a word, because the internet was already saying it for him. If you made it this far, ask yourself, would you have handled it like Ryan? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Would you have walked away or done what he did? And if you love stories that keep you thinking long after they're over, make sure to hit like and subscribe. Because in a world full of scripted moments, we bring you the stories that feel real. What would you have done? Let us know below.